Welcome to Kangaroos, the podcast. We provide incredibly local content for our incredible local realtors. Rachel, always good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. What is our question of the day?
It's summer in Nashville, which means we had about 5 days where it felt spring-like. And yesterday was 95 and humid enough to...
You could swim through it.
Yeah. It's time for watermelon. It's watermelon season.
Okay.
Watermelon is refreshing.
Delicious.
Delicious. But are you a salt on the watermelon person? Or just a watermelon? Like by itself is great. Why add anything to it?
Why add salt?
Because the working theory is that it actually makes it taste sweeter.
What?
Have you?
No, I've never heard this.
Just as many tips about food as you give me, I'm really shocked that you've never put salt on your watermelon. Don't you put salt on your ice cream?
I do put salt on my ice cream.
Okay, I guess it's like kind of the same.
That is fascinating. I've never heard about putting salt on watermelon.
I never really did it until my in-laws, I think, were the ones that were like, you don't put salt on your watermelon? And I was like, I didn't know this was a thing. When I eat watermelon, I don't think to put salt on it until I'm with people that do that. And I'm like, oh.
Huh. Well,
now I mean, not
something
like
to try.
Yeah, not lots of salt. It's like a little sprinkle.
Yeah, just to flavor it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, so audience of ours, if you put salt on your watermelon, we want to know.
Yeah, that's right. I want to know how that is.
Maybe
that's a great question of the day.
Well, I'm really shocked by your answer. I really thought you were like, yeah, who doesn't do that? So I've learned something.
I never cease to surprise you.
Right.
What is our 1 minute marketing term? Welcome to the episode. The real start of the episode, 1 minute marketing term.
Inbound marketing is our term of the day, which is an approach on drawing in a narrow audience as opposed to casting a really wide net. So you're going for your most qualified customer instead of that top funnel strategy that we've talked about previously. Instead of just saying, here I am, you're going into those people that you're sure are going to buy.
That's right. So it's pretty deep down into the funnel at that point.
Yep.
That's great. Super niche audience, super specific messaging. You are targeting. You are targeting. You are targeting them well.
Take another sip of that chai latte. I hope it has caffeine.
Oh, goodness gracious. Great term.
Let's get started. Today, we're talking about self-evaluations. I hate that term. It sounds so corporate-y.
What would you call it?
A self-reflection time.
Okay.
I don't know, but I'm the girl that when you get emails like this from an HR department rolls my eyes because I don't feel usually as if those are especially helpful, which is funny because I'm telling you that you should do them because they are helpful if done in the proper way. But I just feel like a lot of HR departments, it's like a box they're checking off to say that they do this for their employees and that they're not really structured in a way that's giving you deep insight into who you are and how you can be improved. So
it comes back to process. It's the best way to do this is what?
We're going to talk about that today.
Okay. Great.
So buckle up, everyone. Do you make time, Andrew, to do any sort of self-reflecting?
Intentional self-reflecting? I don't think so. Should I? Absolutely. I do think that I have a pretty good post-mortem evaluation after I finish things, but I don't have the Bill Gates once a week go off and figure out my life. But as I finish any project, if it's, working on the house or if it's a video project or whatever it is, I love to look back and say, okay, what did I do wrong? What did I do uh, good or well? Um, and then how can I be better next time? So it's always a self improvement rather than maybe an evaluation.
Okay, that's fair. So really it is, but you're
Yeah,
just not calling it that.
right.
And you're in the process of doing that in an ongoing way versus a time where you stop and take note of the past year as a whole.
That's right. That's right.
Even though I would say that maybe both and
Yeah, I
would
mean,
be beneficial.
we had annual reviews at a company that I worked for, and that um, annual reviews, in my opinion, can be really good and can be really awful. If I am learning about something in my annual review, that's wrong. So you should be able to, as your superior, pull your team aside in the moment and coach them up. You should not be learning anything in your annual review. Now you can definitely call back to, hey, you remember when you did X, Y, and Z and we talked through it then? You didn't really change, or you did a great change.
Yeah,
And so that is where I think annual reviews are done well.
agreed. So when you're doing any sort of self reflecting,
Hmm.
do you have mentors that you ask to speak into some of the things that you might, like any conclusion that you might draw about yourself? So if you are looking back over the last year and you've had these specific goals and you have or haven't reached them, do you go to someone that you trust and say, where did I go wrong? Or do you see a weakness? Or what do you think I'm really good at? Do you ask any of those questions?
Yeah, so like a 360 peer review is that idea. Um, yeah, again, it depends. So I have several mentors, and there is no one guy in my life that I'm like, ooh, I want that. I want to be 100% a carbon copy of that guy. But I see aspects of his life that I would love to emulate in my life. And then I've got another mentor that I say, oh, like, he's really good at this. And I want to emulate that portion of his life into my life. And so they say that you're the average of the five people that are closest to you. And so pick your mentors wisely, pick your friends wisely. And I absolutely go and I ask them, again, not on an annual basis, but like, it's more of, hey, we haven't touched base in 6 months, or we haven't touched base in 3 months. Let's go get coffee or lunch. And in that conversation is very much I've been studying this. Tell me how to redefine or rehone my approach to be better. It might be one of my mentors is a phenomenal husband and father, and I would love to emulate that. Another one of my mentors is a phenomenal businessman, and I would love to emulate that. And so I ask specific questions of those people. Um, Now, a 360 peer review often tends to be people that you just work with, and they may or may not be in the same field as you, but um, it's hard. I think peer reviews are harder because I don't know if they truly understand our work as much as I just happen to have a desk next to them.
That's fair. It really depends on what kind of feedback you're seeking. And
Yeah.
so I think this is a good time to talk about why we would do any sort of self-evaluating. Um, One, I think you're getting honest with yourself. So it's a
Yeah.
time to really look at the good, bad, and ugly and say, what am I doing really well? Um, what am I, where are the opportunities for improvement? So I think we'll get there later in the episode. So I don't want to go there now, but let's put a pin in that because we're going to come back to it. Um, am I on track to meet whatever goals that I've set out to accomplish in this time frame. So whether it be every 3 months you do this or every month or once a year, whatever, am I on track? So I'm a runner sometimes. I love running. It's just whether my life allows me to do if I can prioritize it or not in whatever season I'm in. So if I want to run an extra mile this year, so if I have a goal to run 1,000 miles, how do I run an extra 10? Well, I set a goal that I'm going to run 2 or 3 times a week, and every time I'm going to add a quarter mile to my distance, and by the end of the year, I should have, gained 10 extra miles or whatever that looks like. So have I done that? Have I made time to do all that? Is that what's most important to me? Is it my highest priority? Those are the questions you can ask at the end of a certain time period. So I think it's important to have sort of a mid-range check to see if you're on task.
That's
or
right.
you're there, or and then a sort of, like you say, a post-mortem, whatever you want to call it. It's doing the same thing. You're looking back over what you set out to accomplish and seeing, was I successful? If not, do I still want to make this a priority? And if so, what can I do better to get farther, be more successful the next time?
I hope I'm not alone in this, but I suffer from a sickness of I just think I'm going to be awesome at everything I do. And so it is really important for me to track things so that I can realize I'm not awesome. And so there are things that I need to improve. Gosh, and let's take running for example. I loathe running. But if I wanted to run, let's just start with a 5K. If I wanted to run a 5K, I'm going to need to train for that. And so, like you're saying, make goals, make intermittent goals on how to get to that major big goal. And you have to track your progress.
Yes. So practically, if one, we would encourage, this is us encouraging everyone to do that. If you set a goal in general, whatever that looks like, if it's personal or something that helps you in your, we work with realtors. So if it's how many houses you want, or how many closings you want to have per month to get you to a next revenue goal that you want to reach this year, what are those things? So practically, number one, I think the thing that you have to do is be intentional about setting time to do it. So if
That's
this
right.
isn't a practice that you do regularly, I think Andrew and I have personalities where we're maybe really critical about ourselves a lot. So we're always thinking about what can be done better, and have relationships with friends and mentors and ask those questions just because we have found that to be helpful in the way that we've done things in our careers. But if you haven't been in this practice, there's no better time to start. So
That's right. Start now.
start now. And the way that you start anything is dedicate time. So decide how often you want to do this, and maybe you do it more frequently to make it a better practice. So maybe it's once a quarter. Schedule a day, and literally a day, because you'll be surprised how much you accomplish just by sitting and thinking. One, I think we forget to do that sometimes. So it would be helpful. But put it on your block off your calendar and commit to keeping that day blocked.
That's really good. I think you said it earlier with intentionality. All of life needs to be intentional. If you want to
100,
change, if you want to get better.
yep, 100%. Number two,
Number 2.
be specific and cite examples.
Yeah, this
So,
is just
like,
good goal setting.
right. So, I've talked about running. I talked about how I would set a goal to run an extra quarter mile a week to get me to my end goal of an extra 10 miles a year. Like we just said, if I'm a realtor and I want to move into the next sales bracket at my brokerage, then I know if an average house in this area is going for $500,000, then I need to close 10 more houses this year to move into that next bracket. So what am I doing to grab those 10 extra clients this year? Do it. So, and when that happens, when you're reflecting, write it down and say, at the 6 month mark, I, Rachel, have run an extra 4 miles that have gotten me to my goal, like got me that much closer to my 10-mile goal. So I know in the next 6 months, I need to pick up the pace so I get that extra 6 miles in.
Yeah. And let's also celebrate that you got 4 extra miles, right? Or whatever your middle ground is. Like, you don't always have to be critical. You can still celebrate all of your goals.
Yep.
Celebrate them. Number 3, you got to write it all down. You got to just journal it. So one of my favorite books, I'm sure I will talk about all the time, is The Compound Effect. And so if you aren't tracking this specific example, if you are not tracking this, you're not going to know. So anything you want to change, you have to track. So if you want to change your finances, track what you spend. If you want to go on a diet, you have to track your food. Anything you want to change, you got to write down.
That's a hard one to hear after a Memorial Day week of eating copious amounts of
Banana
dessert.
pudding.
But that was what I was referring to. But yeah, you're right. We need to think about how many times I've had banana pudding this week. Okay, number 4. Speaking
Number 4.
of, if you've identified places where you're weak, aka banana pudding, then reframe them as opportunities. I'm not sure how to make an opportunity out of banana pudding, so this was a bad example. But
Sure you can. You can you've got the opportunity to you're eating fruit, but you've got the opportunity to eat healthier.
what are you trying to say? Totally kidding. Instead of banana pudding, maybe like bananas
broccoli.
and Greek yogurt. I don't know. Make a healthier choice. Get back on track. The benefit of doing these more regularly than annually, if you have an annual goal, is that you have time to say, I'm not on track. And this is an opportunity to get back on track. I haven't failed. I've just gotten off course. So what I can do this week to get me back on course is not eat banana pudding and have Greek yogurt or something. I don't know.
Yeah, for me on this one, I'm reminded of just a standard SWOT analysis. So standard strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So it's super simple grid. It's described really well in The First 90 Days, which is a book. So list out your strengths, list out your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So your threats was like, how about you just don't have banana pudding in your house? Like, that's pretty simple. If it's in my house, I'm gonna eat it, and now it's a weakness. So it helps you. It's a really good framework to help you make some really good goals for you.
Agreed. And I think this is also why we say to reframe it as an opportunity is that we can all be really, really hard on ourselves. And that's not always fair to ourselves. Just because we have messed up once doesn't mean we're a total screw up. It just means we messed up because we're human and we get to get back on track because we have another day to do that. So
that's right.
That's what we mean. Be positive. Positivity really does help.
Number 5.
Get you closer. Number 5. Speaking of positivity, and we kind of alluded to this a little bit a minute ago, but celebrate.
I'm sorry for that. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Yeah.
Thanks for being celebratory and positive. Celebrate your accomplishments throughout the year. So at Kangaroost, we like to celebrate small things, small victories, because we want to recognize that all of those small things are what actually build the big thing. So if I'm building a house, my house doesn't come just put together. I have to have nails, and I have to have 2x4s, and I have to have people to do it, and I have to have faucets and screws and all the things that go together to put a house together. My house would not come together without all those little pieces. So celebrate the fact that you have nails and wood at your house to build whatever room.
That's right.
And like truly be intentional. Those are happy moments. And that means you've accomplished things. It might not be your whole goal, but you're one step closer. So happiness right there. Number 6, finally, I think that you and I both had a similar leader in the past that has asked us to do these things, but it's one of the things that cynical Rachel did not roll her eyes at when she was asked to do. So we're going to talk about that. It is a stop doing list. So I have had a couple of leaders in the past, different jobs that I've had, who have, in like a review period, asked me, hey, what can you stop doing? I think it's very important because we get into rhythms and we build habits, and that's really good. It's really good to have those things. But also, that's when we get into ruts sometimes and don't even realize that we might be wasting a colossal amount of time doing something because we've always done it that doesn't really need to happen anymore because you've either grown more efficient or because your goals have changed a little and you're still doing this. But like, what is it that you can stop doing? Or maybe it's nothing. Maybe you realize, I've done really great and I've already done those things and there's nothing I can really, there's no ball I can drop. But maybe you even find free time for yourself, which is really healthy, is to have time to do nothing or to spend time with other people or to sort of grow and nurture a hobby. Those things, hobbies, all those things, free time make you a more well-rounded person who's more creative. And when your brain is freed up a little, you'd be surprised at how much that can help you grow so much more.
Yeah. This reminds me a lot of, the legend. Warren Buffett is said to write down everything you like to do on a list. Now cross everything off except for one or two things. It's like everything else is going to pull your attention away from the one and two things that you really got to do. So you got to stop doing some things. Now, I say legend because I love the principle of it, but I read another book called The Third Door, where a guy stands up and asks Warren Buffett the question at the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting about that. And he said, did you really say that? Is that true? And Warren was like, I've never said that ever. I like the idea. You should do that, but I've never said that. So, again, I like the idea. I agree with Warren that, it's about focus. It's about intentionality. If you really want to do this, you got to make time for it. So be intentional.
I mean, it has Warren's stamp of approval, which
It
is
does.
almost like him saying it.
Yeah.
He should just go ahead and take credit since everyone thinks it comes from him anyway.
I think so too. So if you've got questions about goal setting or if you need help developing a plan, we would love to talk with you about it. So Andrew at kangaroost.com or Rachel at kangaroost.com. There we go.
Here we go. We have another question to take us on out of here, which is neighbors. So we're not going to say where we live in Nashville because that's weird, but we'll talk about what makes the best neighborhood and why we love where we live. You go first.
I love my neighbors. And you know what it took? If we're going to harp on this a lot, this episode, apparently, it took some real intentionality. It took some intentionality for us to get to know our neighbors. The very first few times of meeting our neighbors, some people don't click well with others, and then some people are weird. And then quickly you realize that, oh, I'm the weird one in this group. I'm the outsider. That's okay. How do I break into this group? But it took a long time, and it took some real intentional efforts by all of our neighbors. But man, we are a very, very close, tight-knit group.
Same. I love my neighborhood. We just moved recently, and our old neighborhood was great too. So I don't want to give it a bad name. It was different. There were a lot of people who were in a very different season of life than we were. So it was harder to find common ground, maybe, to where we wouldn't just necessarily hang out all the time, just because of the season of life we were all in. But still had really kind neighbors that cared about each other. I think that's the thing. It's intentionality is 100% what's it. So you have to go into the neighborhood saying, if I want good neighbors, then I have to be a good neighbor. And what does that mean? And that means I get to know people. I'm kind. We don't all have to be best friends, but I can be really friendly and I can get to know you and your family and what's important to you and how I can be helpful in the times that you need help. So I think If COVID, maybe, even though we all hate to hear that word, has taught us nothing, we moved in the middle of that being sort of like at its peak, I guess. And so our neighborhood became our little community. And so it was like kind of all were together all the time. We knew where everyone was going. It felt like we went back to, it's very nostalgic feeling here, which is nice. It's like I know everyone's kids. It's like if my kids, which my kids would never act disrespectfully or not behave, but if they should, I know that another parent has my back and is watching out for them. Or if someone's getting hurt, it's like I know a mom somewhere, if my kid falls and scrapes their knee, is going to run in and put a Band-Aid on it and let me know. So yeah, it's intentionality and being the kind of neighbor that you want to have, I think
That's
is
right.
also a tip. But Nashville, this area is full of great neighborhoods.
That's right. A lot
So
of good
we
people
understand,
here in Nashville.
right? We understand why everyone wants to move here, but maybe slow down because
There's a lot
you
of
need to get on. There's a lot of you. You need to ride on 2465 during rush hour and then get back to us.
This is a really good episode, Rachel. Really good. If you have enjoyed this or would love to talk more with us, we welcome that. But would you please rate and review this podcast so that more people will know about it? That's how it gets sent out. Even if you want to rate Rachel at a 10 and me at a -5, I'm all right with that as long as it is a 5-star review.
We offer a service to our listeners that provides content and strategic help every month for your social media. So if you're interested in that, it's $65 a month. For our listeners today, we have an offer for use first month 50, write out the words first month, and you get 50% off your first month.
Oh, that's great.
Try. Yeah. So if you have more questions, Rachel@kangaroos.com or Andrew@kangaroos.com. We would love to meet with you, especially if you're local. We love coffee. We love meeting people for coffee, and we'd be happy to do that.
All right.
With that being said,
we'll see you next time.
Don't forget to try salt on watermelon and to tell us about it.
Bye, Rachel.
Bye.